Good morning to you. It's time for you to get up and sign your own permission slip. That's right. Growing up when we were in elementary school or we were in high school, we couldn't just take off. There were things we wanted to do, field trips we wanted to be a part of, but we had to have our permission slip signed by our parent or our guardian who basically said, I give them the right to be a part of whatever's going on. And I remember a time in my life where I didn't have anybody at home to sign my permission slip. And so I started to sign my own permission slip because I didn't want to miss out on anything. I didn't want to miss out on the fun. I didn't want people to come back and say, oh, Delores, you really missed it. We did this and we did that. And unfortunately, sometimes we're sitting on the sidelines of our own lives, waiting for someone to give us permission to do something that we don't need them to give us permission to do. When you woke up this morning and you went to the bathroom, did you have somebody give you permission to go potty? Well, of course not. Why? Because you got that. You know how to do this. You were potty trained a long, long time ago. So why would you start now trying to ask for permission to live, to be greater, to be stronger, to enjoy your life? You don't have to do that. But I remember one time at school, I really, really, really wanted to go. And you know how sometimes you forget to get your parents to sign the permission slip? So, well, some people would say I was forging her signature. But I knew what I needed to do. So in order to make things happen, I just kind of copied my grandmother's signature. I just did. And the thing was, I was so glad that I did because I learned so much. I opened myself up to a whole new world. Who are you waiting to get permission from for you to go and enjoy your life? I want you to take a moment to think about that. Now, sometimes when we don't feel we have permission, we'll say something like, well, I really didn't want to go anyway. You lying, right? Well, I didn't like that movie. I don't want to hear about it. So now you're bitter and you're upset. And think about it. Some of us are sitting around, we're unhappy, and we're alone in relationships. It's better to be alone with yourself than to be alone in a relationship. And sometimes that's what happens. You stop living. You stop living because someone you're with or someone you knew has told you either they didn't like it and they don't see why you would go and do it, but they're not you. I'm going to say that again. They're not you. Recently, I've been watching a series of movies on Netflix. Well, y'all know we in the house, so I don't just want to watch grim things. But one of the common themes of these stories were young people who either had a gift to dance or a gift to make music, and they just wanted to be a part. They wanted to hone their skills. They knew that they could make it. But for whatever reason, their parent, their mom primarily, and their dad, they were like, oh, that's just a waste of time. Well, for them, it was a waste of time. But for you, it's something different. And I remember seeing a part of a movie, and this young woman, she could dance. And her mom found out that she was getting ready to leave. And so her mom ran to the bus stop and came on the bus and told her daughter, get off. And everybody's looking like, oh my goodness. Well, because her mom had no idea what her daughter was capable of. She just thought it was a waste of time. Maybe it didn't work out for her mother. And the young girl said, I'm not getting off the bus. Now, y'all know some of us would have been like, ooh, you gonna get it. But then someone spoke up for her and said, you have a really talented daughter. She is amazing. She's a critical part of this team. And so the mom said, okay, I'm going to go. And her mom was amazed because they won. Sometimes we are sitting there based on somebody else's fear. They're apprehensive about, if this is good or not. I'm going to give you a really quick story. At one point, before I, really got into radio, I wanted to be in television, and I went and got my bachelor's in broadcast journalism. Well, then I came, back home to Kansas City for various reasons, love. And I got into radio, and that was for the first time I really paid attention to my voice. And people told me it was really, really good. And I was like, yeah, whatever, but I want to be on TV. And it's not to say you can't do that, but sometimes your strength is something that's already with you that you're ignoring for whatever reason. I was told that people on TV were beautiful, but if you went on radio, that means you weren't attractive. And so here I was going, I'm not going to go on the radio, because y'all know how that goes. Anyway, let's come back to you. So I got married at one point, and I remember going over to work for Carter Broadcasting Group, for those of you in Kansas City, Hot 103 Jams and KPRT. And at the time I was married, and my husband was a preacher, and so he had this image to uphold. I was about 11 years younger than he was. And we always trying to help Jesus out. We always trying to help God out. And so I remember going to an interview with Sam Weaver. And when I sat down, I was qualified for the job, but this is what I told Sam. I said, Sam, I'm a gospel expert. He looked at me and he said, well, I don't hire experts. I hire radio personalities. And so I left without that job, not because I wasn't qualified, was because I put a limitation on myself. So as I was driving home, I asked myself, Delores, are you turning this thing down because you feel that you can't be saved and be a radio personality at an R&B station? Or are you trying to fulfill a request or a demand, or you're walking along in the footsteps of your husband who's a preacher? You're not the preacher. And you don't even have to say you're a preacher's wife. You're a human being, and God has gifted you with so many things. So I got home and I thought about it. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to ask for his permission to do something I've worked my whole life for. So I called Sam back and I left him a voicemail and I said, good evening, Sam. This is Delores Jones, and I know that you are the person I need to work with to take my career to a next level. And he said, come on back in. So I went in and I explained the situation to him, and he said, oh, okay, I see. See, sometimes we hold ourselves back because we don't want to make other people look bad, but that's not your job. You can't make anybody look anyway. Whatever moves you make, it's all about your life and what you look like in the end. So he said, I make a deal with you. For 6 months, you can be on the gospel side. You're going to be on KPRT. But after that, I'm going to put you over on KPRS, Hot 103 Jams. And I'm like, oh my God. I said, okay, well, that 6 months came up, and he said, that's it. It's time to transition you. And I was so nervous because I had spent so much of my life learning gospel music. I mean, I didn't even know who, I ain't even going to, I didn't know, y'all ready for this? Well, of course I knew who Biggie Smalls was, but I didn't know much about him. But here was the thing. I could read. So I started reading up about Biggie Smalls and some of the other teams that I had never heard of. And I remember opening up the microphone and I said, Hot 103 Jams, this is Delores. We're going to send you to Hawaii. But up next is Notorious B.I.G. on Hot 103 Jams. So when I got home, my sister goes, what do you know about Biggie Smalls? I said, I know nothing about him, but I know that I can read. And so I began to familiarize myself with the artists on the R&B side. And then one day I was asked to sit in with one of the legendary radio personalities, Mr. Chris King. That means the largest audience was listening. So I go on, and they wanted me to do it for a week, and I opened up the mic and I just let it go. I just kept doing my thing. And they started calling Sam and saying, who is that young woman with that voice? See, I was trying to play small. Some of us are trying to play small when we need to give ourselves permission to play big. Play big or go home. So I continued. The next thing you know, I was given other assignments, major assignments for radio. And then one day I got a call from a friend of mine, Diane Devereaux. She was like one of the top radio personalities, females, beautiful voice. She said, hey, Delores, I got an opportunity for you. I'm coming off the air at this other station, which some of you know as Magic 107.3. She said, I want you to come over and I want you to apply for the job. I got hired right on the spot. And that was the beginning of my career in radio. But at home, things weren't really good. And I eventually, you know this sometimes getting in the relationships and all of those restrictions. But eventually, I had to choose me. I had to give myself permission to dream. I had to give myself permission to use my God given gifts and talents. I think back now, what if I had stayed stuck in my husband's mindset, meaning he was my husband? Then there would be so much I missed. I wouldn't have been able to meet Oprah. I wouldn't have had a chance to become an award-winning journalist. There's so many things I would have missed out on waiting for someone else to give me permission. Today, I challenge you to look at what you're holding yourself back from. And I want you to ask yourself, am I doing this because this is something I believe? Or is this something that somebody told me? Or am I afraid that if I do this thing that I know I'm supposed to do, that this person will walk away from me? Some people can't see it for you, but it's not their job. It is your job to see it. It is your job to see it. Now get up and sign your own permission slip and show up. And if there's an opportunity that you let pass you by because you were living small, because of somebody else, their fear, their past traumas, their current disappointments, or their fear that they'll lose you, that's not your problem. It's time for you to be great. We need your song. We need your book. We need your story. We need whatever it is that God has given you. We need your voice. I'll be looking for you in the winner's circle. Delores Jones, your comeback coach, is my name, and I just want to see you win.